Hello?
This is a collect call from
Life of a Lifer.
To accept this call, press 5 now.
Hello and welcome, friends and family. Hope that everything is going well as expected in these hard times, but today I have a special guest. I have Jose, who is working with an organization traveling around telling the stories of those to make sure that they are not forgotten. Jose, are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here.
How are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, man. You know, the Life of a Lifer is really about telling people stories from inside of bars. And as I understand, you spent some time in prison, and I'd like to just hear your story.
Yeah, I mean, I did. I got a 5-year sentence when I was 18 and a half. Did a little over 4 out of that sentence. My story is not too different from the stories of most guys in prison. I grew up single parent home, dysfunctional household, absentee father, and the first place that I really saw love and camaraderie and friendship and all those things were in the streets. It was with the homies and to a young kid who's searching for so many answers that at that time that seemed like the answer. And when you're in it as a kid, you don't know what you're involved in fully. You're just kind of going with the flow. You're kind of caught up in the mix, and I certainly was. And that led to me, joining a gang when I was 16 and thinking that that's where I belong, thinking that that's all life had for me. And you don't just start off, doing, the more extreme gang activities. It starts off small and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And, eventually, me and a couple of my friends, we all decided that we would just go start robbing stores, and we ended up doing that. We ended up getting away a few times, and eventually we got caught, and that's when I started my prison time.
Yeah. And then, so you were in LA, right?
Yeah, I was in LA.
Yeah, man, and I bet, so you were a young kid, and I hear that story a lot where it's the, single parent, you don't feel like you really have anybody, so then you turn to the streets, man, and that's where you find acceptance. And so I feel like there must have been at some point that things clicked for you. And, can you tell us a little bit about after you got out of prison, what it was like and how things changed for you?
Yeah, so, it's a process, and things didn't really click for me until, maybe 2-3 years ago. And that's a whole journey in and of itself. I mean, I got out of prison. I was 22 and a half years old, and but I was still very much imprisoned in my thought process. I was still very much had an inmate state of mind, and that doesn't transfer well into normal society. I still had a great amount of pride and ego that I earned by doing all the wrong things, thinking they were right. And I carried that, outside of jail, and I went back to LA, and you get sucked back in it. The prison politics are like street politics, except you have more freedom of movement, and except you're not in a cell, you're in a house, you're in an apartment. And, I got, back into that, especially when you get released back into your same environment. I mean, it takes, heaven and earth to get you out of it. And that's pretty much what happened for me. 2 years into my parole, I was getting my hair cut, and I walk outside the barber shop, and I see a guy who I had a personal issue with probably a few weeks back, I see the barrel of his gun. He discharges a few times. My friend gets hit in the face, and it just skims him, and he's bleeding profusely. And I just remember in that moment, I was like, man, the only thing I thought was like, I'm not going to be able to get off my parole if I stay in LA. So I ended up calling my dad, whom hadn't been around and whom I didn't know too well, but he always said that if I ever needed to get my life together, that I can go and go with him and try and figure things out. And I did. And I took him up on that offer, and I was able to leave the environment. I was able to leave an environment that would have for sure led to my demise, especially with the frame of thought that I had. So, I ended up moving to San Antonio and then kind of learning how to live a regular life, but still not willing to give up my my street persona that I had built up. So I would still do little things here and there, and eventually I had an identity crisis. Eventually, all the pride and ego that you get in the streets or you get in prison, that doesn't translate at all in regular society. And you have to, you have these realizations like, man, all these things you did, what were they for? And, my life didn't start turning around until I moved to Denver, and, I experienced a deep depression, and, I did it pretty much like a deep search back within myself, and it was intense. I thought that the way I was feeling in that depression was, my just punishment for the things I had been a part of and the things I had done, and it was debilitating. Every day getting up was a struggle. Every day going to work was a struggle, and I ended up hitting rock bottom. I got fired from one job, fired from the next, DUI, my girlfriend left me, and all this happened in a span of maybe 3 months, and the world came crashing down on me, and I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to sit with myself. I didn't know how to be myself. The depression was so bad. I had even thought, man, this is how it's bad. It's when you start thinking that, man, maybe life was better inside those cells. That's how dark and deep the depression went, to the point of, me just wanting to take my own life. And, when you're at that point and you're really in those suicidal thoughts, and it's that battle, every day is a battle of life and death, and I didn't know how to deal with it. So, I was at my wit's end, and the more I tried to plow through it, the more deeper I got into the depression, and finally I just didn't know what to do. And, it's like in my darkest hour, when it was either I'm going to kill myself or not, in that moment I cried out to God, and, I pretty much surrendered, and I said, I'm sorry. And in that moment, I certainly felt a glimmer of hope that, was a catalyst for where I am right now.
Wow, man. I'm just sitting here mesmerized by hearing this stuff that you go through in this journey, in this walk of life, and where you've come from and where you are now. I'd like to hear a little bit more about, what you've been doing since then, since this aha moment, so to speak, when you found that hope. I understand that you're doing this. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was an aha moment, and in that aha moment, it was hope. It was like, hey, man, like it can get better. It can get better, and I was at a point where I thought my life didn't matter, and I thought that my very own story didn't matter, to its extreme as far as wanting to end it all. And during that moment when I had that hope, and I was able to receive hope, it was I was able to remember a simple truth that my mom had taught me a long time ago, and it was just, hey, your life will always matter simply by just being, simply by being a person. If you never did anything else, if if it's just you. It's not about the accomplishments, the accolades, that your life has meaning just because. And, with that foundation, I was able to move forward. And it was, if my life mattered, then my story has to matter just as much. And what does that mean? I mean, we all know kind of in the back of our heads and in our hearts that our life has meaning and transcendent value. So why don't we apply that same belief to our very own story? And I was able to see the value in my own story again, and I was, I kind of just had a dream to go share other people's stories, and I had a brother who lived with me, and I told him the idea, and he was all in. And that doesn't happen every day, but and I had another brother, a little brother, and he said he was all in with what we do, and we were like, yeah, we're just gonna go around, listen to people's stories, and share them, and hope that people see the similarities within their own story in another person's story, and just simply reminding people that, hey, their story kind of does mean the world.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's a profound thought. That people's story does matter. They do matter. They add value. They have merit, and really kind of inspiring hope into other people. So tell us more about the organization that you work with, and what you guys, how is it that you guys do this, and who else you're doing this with?
Yeah, so me and my brother started the organization. We Are All One Story, and what we do, it's very simple. It's very simple. We just go and listen to people's stories, and we share them on our social media platforms. We ask each person the same set of questions, and within those questions, we usually get to see the essence of the person. And within each question, we try and make sure to ask, how did that feel? Because when we go into how did it felt, we kind of go more into the person, and it kind of gets deeper into just a black and white event. And I think in that, when we listen to these stories, we always say the only requirement is complete honesty, because if you're not honest with your own story, then then it's essentially a lie, and there's no healing. There's no healing within a lie. There's no healing within not saying the truth. So when people are brutally honest and vulnerable, we don't just think, we know that real healing happens, that realizations happen, and that sometimes, hopefully people can see that they're the main character in their own story, and that, what happened before in their past, what happened to them as a kid, or things they did, that's not happening today. And today you have the ability to make a decision on how you move forward. And, that's pretty much all we do, 24/7.
Yeah, man, that's really, it's inspiring to me to see you guys, or hear about it, and feel your story shine through here, because a lot of people, and I had trouble with opening up myself to really look back. A lot of people don't like to look back like that, because they don't want to relive some type of a traumatic experience, or a set of experiences that happened to them when they were younger. But when they do really look back, when they do reach down and open up and share that, it's like you unburden yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. I think a lot of, even me, with my specific, life and being in prison and in the streets and all those things, I felt like all the things I was doing, remaining. All the things I was doing at that time were to hide and mask all the hurt I had felt as a kid, were to hide and mask my insecurities. And, especially in prison, like, if you look around, you see a lot of pride, you see a lot of hate, you see a lot of masks, you see a lot of facades, when really there's a lot of people in there who deep down inside, they're just hurting. And I know I was, because I'm speaking from experience, that I just wanted to be able to. You have 30 seconds remaining. I just never knew that I could.
So, is there any other stuff that you would like to talk about, Jose?
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, I'm pretty much an open book. If you have any questions, I can definitely answer any of them. I think we talked about a few things. The most important thing I think that we always talk about is people not losing the value in their own story, that the value in their story is connected to their value as a human being, and both of them can't be taken away from them. So it's just, simple reminders. Unless you have any more questions for me.
I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story with us as you're going around, giving a voice to others and sharing their story. And I think for me, aside from what you just said right there, what I really took away from it was the value of hope. And while, especially one that's incarcerated, when somebody doesn't have any hope in their life, it's like, what's the point? And that's where I find that a lot of times people don't have any direction or any inspiration or really goals or anything in their life because they don't have any hope for something, for a better future, for a better life, for anything. If you give up on hope, you basically have given up on life. So finding that hope and how that transpired your life at your lowest point, because I relate to that myself, and I feel that that's really important.
I mean, yeah, hope is huge. I remember, it's crazy when I was on the level 4 yard in California, the maximum security. So I was, all the homies were pretty much lifers and or 15 years plus, all those things. And I remember one of the big homies, like, we were having a discussion, and he was like, they were talking about why would you have hope in here, that you're just hurting yourself, right? And I'm just listening. I'm young. I'm just soaking in game. And it's like, all you're doing is hurting yourself. Why have hope? Why don't you just accept it for what it is and just keep on going? And I never forgot that conversation, and it stuck with me. And because, anyone can make a good argument for whatever their belief is. And it's up to you if you believe otherwise. You should have the counter argument. And I was just listening, and I was like, well, if there's no hope, then what's the point then? You could just hang yourself. You could just end it. You could just go shoot a guard. I said, you make it, or he made it seem that it's easier not to hope. And I remember thinking, like, no, that's you're dead at that point. I'd rather go on hoping and dreaming and working towards that hope than not having it at all. Because if I didn't have it at all, I would have no purpose. I wouldn't be here. And the power of hope is amazing, and it's beautiful, and it's life changing. And to have that hope, to continually get better day by day, to focus on everything that's good, focus on love, focus on a future, focus on what you can do today to be better. I mean, that's meaningful in and of itself. There's meaning inside those walls as well. I mean, last time I checked, you're around other human beings. And last time I checked, the most important thing in this world are human beings. There's nothing more precious than another soul. I always tell people when I tell them, people would ask me, why are you doing this, stuff like that. When you watch the news and the plane crashes, a $500 million plane, do we talk about the price of the plane, or do we talk about the people in that plane? We all know that the people are worth something we can't even imagine. If a whole city is leveled, do we talk about the building blocks, or do we talk about the lives lost? So, we all have an opportunity to fulfill a purpose which is to our neighbor, to our fellow person. And how do we fulfill that person? By simply trying to be better every day, by waking up with the intent to do something good, the intent to be kind, the intent to be understanding. These things are easier said than done, but this is, to me, really the purpose of life. That our purpose lies within other people and how we can help them, and vice versa. But I never forgot that discussion, and hope is something that I have, and hope is something that definitely keeps me going.
Yeah, man, those are really powerful words that you said there, and that it leads me into my final question for you, Jose, because I think it really summarizes that statement that you made about the value of people's lives, and even if you're incarcerated, because really, I would like to know and get your take on how you feel about life sentences, life without the possibility of parole. Like, that's basically, locking somebody up and just throwing away the key and not having any chance for that person to ever demonstrate that they have reconciled or that they have changed. They've had that aha moment, and they're now doing different things despite the environment that they're in. What do you think about the life without possibility of parole sentence that over 200,000 Americans are sentenced to currently?
I think, as you know and I know, that there are some people who show absolutely no remorse and who go in prison and just continue to live the same life, and there's no change. We both know this, and I think for individuals such as that who have no level of regret or remorse for the things they've done, I think life without the possibility of parole is very suited for them, because that's what, in a weird way, that's what it's like. There's no change of heart, But I'm a person, I believe in second chances, because I've had a second chance myself, and the fact is, there are people who are rehabilitating themselves, and there are people who have true changes of heart. And how the law changes and reflects that and gives those people an opportunity. I don't know how that looks like, but I do believe it should be there.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree with you. There are people who just clearly have no desire to change, and if that's the case, then this may be the place for you to resign.
Right. But I think we also both know there's numerous disparity.
Yeah, there's numerous cases of people who have demonstrated that, but yet there is no way for that person to seemingly transverse and to get out of prison and show and demonstrate that they have changed, because there's a lot of places that there is no parole system. I feel like as a society we have come far enough to understand that, and even the basic fundamentals of the Constitution state that as such, that if people demonstrate change, that there should be some recourse for them, and not to just be sentenced to die in prison and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be blanket. Like, I think it should be person to person at the very least. We also know there's a disparity between the lifers in prison and just given with what our society is, that there's a level of unfairness, and it's a loaded question, and it requires a comprehensive answer. And I think that if we could go on a person-to-person basis, that would be much better. And I know people don't like to be at the whim of a court or of a judge, but I think that would be the best, versus being under a blanket that if you do this, you have life without.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because there's a lot. You can get different counties across the same state, and people do the same exact thing, and you have multiple different ranges of the consequences.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely a interesting conversation and a really, really inspiring story, Jose. I appreciate you coming on here, and I hope to talk to you again in the future, and maybe talk to some of your colleagues. And we'll definitely share your story on our platforms as well. And appreciate the work that you're doing. It does mean a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate your work as well.
Thank you. Well, you take care, man, and have a good one, Jose.
Thank you for listening. I'm Taylor Conley, and this is Life of a Lifer podcast. Be sure to visit the website lifeofalifer.com, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.